how are you? Hello. Hello. Well, cheerful group. Hello, David. How are you? Doing well? Let's do it. It's a little chilly. Okay.
Now, does your brother recommend good places to stay up here? So where are you and your family living?
We're what is it called? Not
I'm
too
for
far
it.
from the zoo and that Omni Shore.
Oh yeah, they will love that. 'Cause you
Good
have
area.
one child, two.
Yeah, well, we have one 5-year-old daughter, and my wife is due on the 27th with a little boy. Yeah.
Congratulations.
So,
I want to say good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
and on behalf of County Executive Baker, I want to welcome you to Prince George's County. For those of you that may be out of the area, for others, welcome to the County Administrative Office building and to this roundtable discussion. First, we'll have the County Executive give a few opening remarks, and then we'll have the Senator and Secretary Castro give some remarks, and then we'll go around the table. So first, Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Eric. First of all, I want to thank the Secretary for coming here to Prince George's County. We're pleased to have you. I think this is your first visit to Upper Marlboro.
I believe so. Yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
great. We're happy and very pleased that the Secretary comes from a background as being mayor of San Antonio, and so understands the issues and problems that we're going through, certainly around housing and foreclosure issues, and the work that we've been able to do, with Eric and his team at our Department of Housing and Community Development, also working with the state and with the federal government. One of the, I tell this story that, when I came into office as county executive, the only nationwide search we did for an appointee was our director of housing, because we wanted to make sure we got it right, and we were very pleased to have HUD's help in giving us some direction in that. So pleased to have you here, Senator Cardin. Thank you very much for, as always, helping out in this administration and making this happen. This is very important issues that affect us, and so having this roundtable discussion is critical. I'm also pleased to have my colleagues, the council chair, Mel Franklin, and members of the county council here. I think we got everybody. So we got a quorum. We could pass something. With that, I just want to say welcome, and welcome to the panels. The panelists, this is a very important issue, so thank you for being a part of it. With that.
Well, first, let me just join County Exec Baker in welcoming our distinguished guest, Secretary Castro, to Prince George County and to Maryland. We were together a little earlier today in Baltimore, where we made an announcement concerning our homeless vets, which is an initiative that the Obama administration has really lived up to a commitment to reduce the number of homeless vets and hopefully to eliminate that problem short order. And they've been on track to do that, and we congratulate them for that. It's nice to be here with the members of the council. I thank them also for being here. Secretary Castro, I think you understand that when we went through our recession, there were a lot of people who were badly hurt as a result of that. In our state of Maryland, we had a large numbers of individual practices, and through no fault of their own, they were extremely vulnerable and paid a heavy price as a result of the practices that took place in our state. So Maryland had one of the highest foreclosure rates in the country. Yeah. All of our counties suffered, including Prince George's County. As a result, we went to work to try to help. And the state of Maryland stepped forward and enacted many new initiatives, including providing resources for counseling, their own programs to try to deal with homeowners who had needed some help in refinancing, or to try to deal with leveling out the payments so they could keep homes. We had our faith-based community stepped in. We had lots of forums where we try to connect the homeowner with the lender and see whether we couldn't do it, make things work. We provided legal services for those who needed legal services. Found counseling to be one of the most important parts of our effort to try to save people's homes. And we were able to help many people. We're not finished yet. We still have too many homeowners who are moving through the process, and it's still unclear whether they're going to be able to save their homes. And I applaud the leadership in Prince George's County in reaching out to make it happen. I want to just first compliment the Obama administration. They came forward with incredibly important programs, HARP and HAMP, and other programs that made a huge difference. I can tell you they did. And just recently, the announcements to try to improve the HAMP program as we reach that critical date where the interest rates may go up a little bit, which could be the difference for some people staying in their homes or not staying in their homes. The Obama administration is very sensitive to that and are now looking at additional ways to provide help. But what I particularly appreciate is your willingness to be here to listen to the people, the advocates who are on the ground. They can tell you what's happening right here in our community. And I must tell you, I find every time we have these meetings, we brainstorm and come up with new ways that we can help people save their homes. One of the best, every time, I know Senator Mikulski has done this, and Senator Mikulski sends her regards. As I told the secretary earlier, Sharon, she's working to try to get this guy a budget. So it's, and
Sure,
we're very
appreciates
close.
that.
You don't know how important that is, but we're this close to trying to get a budget passed for next year, and Senator Mikulski's right in the middle of it. And with Congressman Hoyer and Congresswoman Edwards, we worked as a team to try to make sure that we cover all of these issues so that we can be as effective as we possibly can. Every time we held a forum, and we could bring together homeowners with the mortgage companies, with counseling, we saved people their homes, and we helped preserve neighborhoods. So I thank the advocates who are here, the people here who provide services to those who are potentially could lose their homes. We got to continue our efforts. We're not out of the woods yet, but I thank the Obama administration for the tools that they've made available.
Secretary?
Yes, first of all, thank you very much, Senator, for the invitation to be here. I said earlier in Baltimore, which is true, that during my confirmation process, I was probably in the senator's office for less than 5 minutes when he made sure that I was going to come here to Maryland and listen to his constituents, and I'm glad to be here. Please also do give our regards to Senator Mikulski. She's hard at work trying to negotiate a decent budget for us, so I can assure you that for everyone at HUD, she's in our thoughts and prayers today. She does that. County Executive Baker, thank you for hosting us, and even more so for the great leadership that I know you show. And to the County Council who are here. I started out my career on the City Council of San Antonio, and then served as mayor, and I know the important work that happens at the local level. We feel like, I know that the local level is really where things get done and where innovation happens. So it's great to be here with you, to Director Brown, and Acting Housing Secretary Snuggs as well. Thank you. Well, you know, what we're really here today, I think, to listen to and to talk about is how we can make the American dream more possible for more folks in our country in two ways. Firstly, ensuring that more folks have a chance at home ownership to begin with. Because of the experience that we've had over the last several years, folks have generally become reluctant to champion home ownership, and for understandable reasons, because a few years ago it was too easy to get a home loan. And that was among several reasons that we experienced the housing crisis. The challenge that we have today is that it's too difficult for average, hardworking Americans who are responsible and ready to own a home to be able to get a home loan. And at HUD, through FHA, we are committed to doing what we can with the right approach, a reasonable approach, to ensure that we get that pendulum right in the middle. So we're working with potential home buyers through a housing counseling effort, as well as with lenders to create more certainty, business certainty for them, so that folks can hopefully get the home loan that they're ready for. The other part of that, though, is that we recently, last week, had very good jobs news. I'm sure you all saw that we had a jobs report, 321,000 new jobs created. We've had 57 or 58 months of private sector job growth, almost 11 million new jobs. But we also are very aware that there are still too many Americans that are struggling, including with regard to foreclosure. We know that that has been an acute problem here in Maryland. And as the Senator mentioned, throughout this, the Obama administration has been committed to ensuring that we do our part on the ground level, working with nonprofits, principally through housing counseling and the ability to reduce mortgage payments so that folks can stay in the homes that they worked long and hard to get into in the first place. And at HUD, we're as committed to that as ever. I read an article a few weeks ago in the Washington Post about a woman named Lisa Shepard, who lives in Jessup, and she had been a nurse and then got a law degree, but during the economic downturn, like a lot of other Americans, she lost her job and started having a problem meeting her mortgage payment, even though she picked up other odd jobs to keep going. She was able to take advantage of housing counseling here in Maryland to be able to reduce her monthly mortgage payment by almost $400 a month and to stay in her home with her family. That's the kind of story that we want, the success stories, when it comes to preventing foreclosure in Maryland and in the United States. And many all around this table in the room, y'all are the ones working with folks out there. Your organizations are making a difference. So more than talking today, I'm really here to listen about how we can be a good partner at HUD. What are we doing well? What do we need to look into? What are some things you think might be more effective? What are some things that you've heard about that you think that ought to be tried? We're always looking for new ways to be more impactful. The thing that we do know from the research is that housing counseling and working with borrowers makes a concrete difference in keeping them in their homes. I mean that folks with housing counseling are 3 times more likely to actually get loan modifications and more likely to stay in their homes versus folks that don't get it. And we also know that that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the complexity of challenges that people face. So I'm very happy to be here and look forward to listening and learning. And before I let go of the mic, I do want to introduce Jane Vincent, who is our regional administrator, and she does a great job for the region, and I'm glad that she's here today.
Secretary, thank you so much. Senator, thank you for being here. Mr. County Executive, also, thank you for your time. Before we proceed a little bit further, I want to do a couple of things. First, I want to recognize my colleague and partner from the state, and I say that figuratively and literally, my partner and colleague, Acting Secretary Stucker. We work together on a number of different things, trying to address not only the issue of foreclosure, but other challenges and opportunities in the county. And Maryland DHCD has been a great partner with us, and Secretary Snuggs has continued. I'd like to give him an opportunity to talk about some of the things they're doing and how we've worked together. And then I'd like to come back and tell you about some of the things that we have been doing from the county for those of you that may not have known, and just probably put that in some context, and then open it up to some of our partners around the table. So
where a lot of folks lost their homes in 06, 07, 08 without much relief and really not much support coming from the state and the county level. And we didn't have that here. We had support coming from the county, working with the councils on the ground. We had pro bono attorneys that stepped up. Judge Bell challenged the attorneys to step up and volunteer to help out and provide resources to the counseling network and to homeowners. What we saw were good people in bad loans, and we were trying to find ways of resolving that, and so we jumped right in the boat right off the bat to try to give people information. I don't know if you can recall back in 2007 in Maryland, a lender could get to foreclosure in as little as 15 days in Maryland. You can't get a barber's license in 15 days in Maryland, but you could foreclose on your house, and that was a shame that someone could lose the biggest investment that they had. And so we started out by giving people information so they could make good decisions, challenging the servicers to step up and really sit down and work with families. They weren't prepared for that. We've evolved since then a lot. We've done a tremendous amount of outreach. My colleague Kelly Vaughn, who's sitting at the other end of the table, has organized a number of major outreach efforts in Prince George's County and throughout the state, working with our congressional delegation, working with our local counties and our counseling organizations and lenders to get information to people so that they could take advantage of initiatives like HARP and HAMP, and we call EMA, an Emergency Mortgage Assistance Program. And so it's been a great partnership. We get things done primarily in two ways. We partner, and our counselors are critical to that partnership, our local partners in the county and municipalities, and we leverage limited resources. Nobody's got enough money to solve this on their own, so we try to come up with ways of creative ways, as Eric Brown mentioned earlier, of bringing some real solutions to the table. Not there to just listen to these tough stories, and you guys do it. The counseling organizations are hearing and have heard over the years very tough stories about people getting into situations that they did not understand. You know, the regulators were out there, the folks that are on Wall Street who were charged with regulating the financial institutions didn't understand what was going on in the mortgage banking business. And this thing has gone from your local, bank down on the corner where you can go sit down to the manager, to people owning and organizations owning a piece of a mortgage all over the world. It's a lot more complicated, more difficult, working through trustees and others to try to get a solution. But we've been able to stick with it. I think that we've faced challenges, but we've come up with some really good solutions, and the challenge is not over. We're continuing to come up with creative ways of not only helping people move to the next level, but try to recover some of the damage that's been done over the past 8 years in stabilizing neighborhoods and helping them to grow. So thank you, Eric, for the opportunity to be here and to participate in this discussion.
Thank you, Secretary Stubbs. I want to just take a second and say that, there is a recognition that foreclosure is not a simple kind of problem. It is a complex problem. There are not simple solutions to it, but there are things that can be done, things that have been done. And from the beginning of County Executive Baker's administration, one of the things that he said, and especially when I came into his cabinet, was that foreclosure was high on his list of things to address. He made it a high priority. It continues to be a high priority. Early on, one of the things he tasked one of the entities in the administration was to have the county staff group to take a look at the foreclosure and to see what was the problem, and to see what kind of plausible strategies could we deploy to address this problem. Out of that came what we like to call, or what some of you have heard me say on more than one occasion, to the point that some of you have heard it a lot, and some of you may be sick and tired of me hearing it, but I'll say it again. There's a three-pronged approach that we've taken to dealing with foreclosures in Prince George's County. One is prevention. And prevention meaning trying to prevent foreclosures at the earliest stage possible. And that's where our partners, who are the housing counselors, are very, very important. But not only just dealing with housing counselors, but trying to make outreach efforts to get to people to help them understand that they are in crisis, and then to be able to do something about it once they realize it. And that's a tough thing. Second is to intervene where you can and as often as you can to try to help people from being foreclosed upon. And then third is neighborhood stabilization. And there's a recognition that if you stabilize a neighborhood and a community, you prevent further erosion of not only that community, the fabric of that community, but the tax base associated with that community and the county at large. So having said that, here's some of the things. Housing counselors, a valuable partner, have been a valuable partner. We value them and try to work cooperatively and collaboratively with them to try to help families. Outreach. Outreach has been critical. There have been outreach with the housing counselors. The state has been an invaluable partner. Kelly Vaughn, I can't say enough about you and the things that you have done to try to help us with outreach. Matter of fact, we got one coming up Saturday, another one of the outreaches. The banks. We have worked with banks where we have not only our staff, the housing counselors partners, the pro bono attorneys. We've had cases where we've had banks come to Prince George's County and have families come in with their issues, their problem, and try to get them solved on the site. That has been invaluable in terms of trying to help families stay in their homes and help people understand where they were in this particular crisis. Another thing that has been very, very important is working out an arrangement with the Maryland Department of Labor and Licensing with getting access to the NOI data. This is something that has been very, very invaluable to us and be able to identify who receives these notice of intent to foreclose so that we can get to them quickly. And this has been very, very critical for us, particularly with outreach, working with our housing counselors, but more importantly, when we got the $10 million out of the National Mortgage Settlement, we carved out a piece to say that emergency mortgage assistance. The purpose of this was to be able to say that there are families that all they need is just to be able to get over the hump. You know, every day, you know, I try to make my deals. I know I'm a little bit behind, but if I can just catch up on where I am, then I can take it from there. And there are a number of families that we've been able to assist just to be able to get them over the hump, and they'll be able to carry their mortgage forward from that point on. That could not have happened without the National Mortgage Settlement money. It could not have happened without the great partnership with the housing counselors. So, and working with them to be able to do that. So that's been very, very critical in terms of being able to do prevention. And then also, the other thing in terms of stabilizing communities is the NSP program has been very, very helpful, Mr. Secretary. But not only have we been doing that, we've been using some of our home funds to be able to work with down payment assistance and closing costs. But the big thing, the partnership we have with the state, the Maryland Mortgage Program, where $100 million is being dedicated to down payment assistance and closing costs. But we specifically target some of our toughest zip codes, 14 of those zip codes that they can get up to $20,000 in down payment assistance and closing costs. They get a discount on their interest rate, and then they get up to $2,000 in the reduction on their income tax over the life of the loan. So these are the kinds of things that we're doing in Prince George's County to attack it. We won't say that the crisis is over. We won't say that the problem is solved. What we are saying is that we're taking a big hammer and making a difference, but that can only be done through collaboration and partnership and through leadership of County Executive Baker. I'd like to just pause because I know we wanted to hear from the people out there. I wanted to do two things. One, I apologize and was remiss in I failed to recognize the elected officials, and I charged it to my head and not my heart, or however that goes. I apologize for that. I know that, Mr. Chairman, there are members of the council, so if you want to recognize the members.
Absolutely. From District 2, David Tavares, thank you for being here. From District 7, Karen Tolles. From District 1, Mary Lehman. From District 3, Danielle Galeros. From District 4, Todd Turner. That's all of my colleagues, of course, on District 9, where you're sitting today.
Thank you, Mr. State Delegate.
Doyle Neiman from District 47, and Aisha Brayboy from District 25. And do we have any? I think that's the House and the Senate that are here.
Did I miss?
And I should note, I've been chair of the Housing and Real Property Committee in the House, so all this stuff has come through my committee. And Aisha's not on the committee, but a very active leader and participant in dealing with foreclosure and other housing issues.
Did we miss anybody?
Oh, well, I'll just say that, and thank you so much for your introduction of me, Doyle, but not only am I a delegate, but actually an outgoing delegate, but I also was one of the attorneys that you talked about that stepped up and helped individuals facing foreclosure on a pro bono basis. So I was a part of that Maryland foreclosure prevention team, and I'm also now a new board member on the board of Baltimore Neighborhoods Inc. And our executive director Robert Strupp is here today, and we deal with not only, even though it's called Baltimore Neighborhoods Inc., it's not just a Baltimore based initiative to improve the lives of especially low income or moderate income individuals here in our state, so that everyone can live a quality life. And I look forward to the discussion because there are a couple of things I want to bring up, but that's more on the substantive side, so I'll wait for that. But thank you all so much for having us.
Thank you. With that intro, if we could just sort of go around the table and introduce the rest of the group around the table, but more specifically, if we can sort of take not only what you tell us who you are, what organization, but if you can take a minute or two and talk about some of the things that you see have worked, some of the things where you see need some challenges that we still need to overcome. So I'll start with our good partner, Mary Ann Dillon from here. Marvin, how I miss you. I'm sorry.
Marvin's here so often.
Marvin is here and with us on just about everything, and I consider him a almost, like you said, a part of our staff.
We went to a great school.
Isn't that the only school?
I just want to thank you for having me. This chair costs me a lot because I'm sitting at the table with my regional administrator back out a lot. But listen, I just want to tell a quick story. So I was going out doing 3 miles one day, and I came back, and it started at dark. And I came back, and the sun was up, and one of my neighbors, all of their furniture was on the front steps or something. Now, this neighbor knew I worked for her, but never actually reached out to me, never crossed the street to say anything. And so I knew at that moment that what Housing Counseling Services did, I knew before, but I knew what they did was so important. And so it was not difficult for me to come out and go to all the events, as many events as I could that Kelly was doing, and come work with Eric and the county executive and all of that to make things happen. I really appreciate you as well, Mr. Secretary. I'm also a resident of the county. And Senator, you and I have been a little bit as well. And the things that we do here, the things not necessarily me, but the folks around this table do to help my neighbors is so very important. I appreciate you guys giving me an opportunity, brothers and guys, right? You give me an opportunity to sit and say a couple words and just recognize the great work that you all, everyone here is continuing to do. Thank you so much. And if you just say, Jay, that's something to say. If I could say one other thing, since you threw the table back at me, I also want to make sure that I recognize that Deputy Assistant Secretary Sarah Sharif from the Housing Counseling Services. For those of you who are housing counselors, this is the person that's in charge of making certain that we get all the words out. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm Mary Ann Dillon. I'm the Executive Director of Housing Initiative Partnership based here in Hyattsville. We have offices here as well as in Montgomery County. We are a housing developer and affordable multifamily rental as well as for sale. And we have a large housing counseling program both in this county and in Montgomery County. I want to just let you know, Secretary, that we know that this county has had challenges in the past dealing with its home funds and dealing with COVID money. I just want you to know that under this administration and the leadership of County Executive Baker and with Eric Brown, they have come just like you in terms of the home program. The home program is so important to us in what we're doing. We use it to buy foreclosed houses and to turn them around, and I know that County Executive Baker is very familiar with the high quality of these houses and what they do to really transform neighborhoods, especially under a targeted approach that we have in this county. Regarding housing counseling, I just want to mention that what we are seeing with our clients now really is people who have a permanent loss of income. It's not the people who have the crazy mortgages so much as it was a few years ago, but these are the true victims of the recession. They have lost income, it's not coming back, and they're stuck in their homes. We still have over 40% of the homes in this county that are underwater, where people are underwater under mortgages, which I find extraordinary. So one of the big tools that we have is under the Mortgage Relief Debt Forgiveness Act, and I'm sure you're aware that that expired a year ago. We're now looking at the end of 2014. We have a lot of folks who were able to get some debt forgiveness, but they're facing a big tax bill under a capital gains tax if Congress does not go and extend that tax relief act for another year.
Let me just respond on that. I think it is, no one can say what Congress is going to do. That's for sure. So don't go out and make plans on this. But I think it is likely that by the end of this week, we will extend the mortgage forgiveness tax preference through December 31st of this year only. Now, that's very unfortunate because the bill that was passed by the Senate Finance Committee would have done at least 2 years. So you know you had 2015 also. I don't know what's going to happen in the next Congress on this provision. I think it may well be extended again, but it may not. I mention that because if you do have any potential use of it before the end of the year, where you can time it before the end of the year, you should do that. And I think you'll know by the end of this week that it will be included in the extender package through December 31st, and take advantage of it.
Worth noting, we've already done that at the state level. So we passed the state equivalent of the tax forgiveness, so already, and extended it again. So.
Just for the benefit of some of those in the audience, even the media, can you all tell us a little bit about why that's so important, why extending this is so important, and why it really can be a very big surprise, very bad surprise for someone who thought they were getting, some relief from their mortgage, and turns out they're going to get a big tax bill.
Right. A lot of people bought at the peak of the market, and their homes are not worth anywhere near what they paid for them. They're not for the foreseeable future ever going to be worth what they paid for them. We could go through foreclosure, people can lose their home, and then the bank goes and sells it at the bargain rate price to somebody else. Meanwhile, there's a family that's lost a home. What this act attempts to do is to take people who are in those homes who are otherwise responsible homeowners, simply cannot afford that mortgage payment. They've had a loss of income. No matter what you do, they're never going to be able to afford that mortgage payment unless you forgive some of the principal on the loan. They have a loan for $350,000 on a house that's worth $200,000. If we could forgive some of the debt that's on there and take it back down to something they could afford, like $150,000 or something, they can stay in that home. I mean, the alternative is the house is foreclosed and it's going to sell at that bargain basement price anyway, so the bank's going to take a hit
The tax issue is particular because under our
Yes.
tax law, when a debt is forgiven, no matter what it is, credit card and so forth, that's considered to be income,
Yes.
and you have to pay taxes on it.
That's right.
So it comes up in the foreclosure issue on a short sale, when there's a short sale, and the bank doesn't ask for a deficiency judgment, that's a different issue. But
Yes.
then that would be considered income, or if, as Mary Ann says, if the principal is forgiven, that's also considered income. So
That's correct.
it's really extremely important because otherwise people are getting a 30% 20, 30% tax bill.
Those people have figured it out, do not realize that they're gonna have a taxable event. It really hits them by surprise.
Let me do this, Senator, if I could, just for a second, because we're going to get into the substantive, so we want to make sure everyone gets a quick chance to introduce themselves and then open it back up. So why don't we go, Mr. Harrington?
Thank you, Mr. County Executive, and thank you for convening this meeting, Secretary. Always good to see you here, and haven't been to Texas yet, but I'll make a point. Senator Cardin is a dear friend, and thank you for having this meeting. And Senator Secretary, good to see you as well. My name is David Harrington. I'm President and CEO of the Prince George's Chamber of Commerce. And we have over 500 business members, and who's very interested in this subject. The Chamber's been around for well over 90 years, and so we're a leading voice of business in Prince George's County. I also wanted to just share with you, in terms of my background, I used to be on the county council. And when I was on the county council, I was national chair of NACO's Economic Development Committee, where we were very concerned about block grants. And we see NSP and other sort of block grant dollars as extremely important to economic development in communities. So thank you for your leadership in that. I want to say, now I know we'll get to substantive questions, so to put as a bike rack issue, if you will, is how do we connect then foreclosures to workforce development? NSP, as I mentioned, is very important, but also around the country, I know in 18 states, what we're seeing is a program which really speaks to then how to keep people in their homes while providing them with workforce development, which is called the Hardest Hit Fund. I think, Director Brown, you referred to this, but this goes to the states, and wondering then how we can think about facilitating this to counties who can then provide then the direct sort of loans so that they can keep people, in their homes, while at the same time provide them with workforce development so that then, in fact, when you're providing some time, they can stay in their homes. So perhaps we could talk about the Hardest Hit Fund, which is extremely important in keeping people in their homes.
Hi, I'm Teresa Hill. I'm Deputy Director with Housing Counseling Services. We're a comprehensive agency in the district, but we provide counseling and advocacy to the metropolitan area. So we have a grant with the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development to provide housing counseling. And if I could just give one point that we're seeing and we will hope could increase would be education to homeowners before they purchase. The pre-purchase counseling and the educating them at that point more about what foreclosure options and what budgeting and things, I think that would be more useful to some of our clients, because we find that by the time we get them, it's often too late to try and give them information to really make a difference.
Hello, I'm Donna Hurley, and thank you very much for allowing me to be here at this round table. So I'm the Executive Director with Housing Options and Planning Enterprises, a housing counseling agency located in Prince George's County and Oxon Hill, so very close by. So I want to just share a couple of things. One, I did bring a homeowner with me, and it was the situation, the government that caused her to go into foreclosure. That basically she retired because of health issues, but OPM took 8 months to process her full retirement. Through that, she ended up in foreclosure. She filed bankruptcy. She's on a repayment plan, and through this repayment plan, it's taking most of their income. They're seniors, and they have to go to the food bank in order to get food. They can't even afford to go to the grocery store. It's affecting their prescriptions, their medication, their insulin. So, it's just, sometimes we have to look at, the process, what's happening. As Marianne said, it's not necessarily, these bad loans anymore. It's in many cases, it's the process that forces individuals into foreclosure. The other thing that she didn't know about, she tried several times on her own to file for modification. So and she was denied each time. She just came to us just before Thanksgiving, and hopefully with the grace of God, we're able to get her a modification. But I think going back to, one of the things that I would just like to put out there is that, and we've talked about it before, is branding, that people need to know what HUD-approved housing counseling agencies, what they can do, that we're out here and that we can really provide a service that we can help them. You know, we can no longer continue to be a secret agency, a secret, mission. People need to know that there's resources, free resources available to help them. The other thing, Teresa mentioned education, home buyers education, but we need, education need to be mandatory for individuals that have received a modification or going through the process of a modification, because we have too many repeat individuals coming back to us that have gotten a modification, but they don't have the financial education in order to make the necessary changes, the mindset, the things that are necessary for them to be sustainable. So one of the things that I would like to be on the table is that it's mandatory, even with the EMA that we have in the state. We've talked about that people should not get that $10,000 if they have not gone through a financial coaching program in order to make sure they're sustainable. The same thing with modification. It really needs to be a mandatory process for counseling.
Scott?
I'm Lisa Miller Scott. I represent the Coalition for Homeownership Preservation in Prince George's County, which is a forum for anyone and any organization who is concerned with the housing situation in Prince George's County and surrounding areas, specifically the foreclosure issues, the reason that it was initially organized. But our mission is to not only work for foreclosure prevention, but also to strengthen homeownership in general. Towards that end, we do work extensively with the county and state departments of housing and community development. And we do currently have a campaign that we're promoting that does promote housing counseling, because obviously, as everyone has said, that is very important. It's a three-pronged campaign which promotes foreclosure prevention, pre-purchase counseling, as well as financial literacy, which are all things that have been spoken about. I also want to introduce a couple of my board members, of the organization's board members, my two co-chairs, Donna Hurley and Miss Lisa Butler-McDougal, who's over in the corner, who work also very tirelessly to keep the coalition and its work going, and we look forward to the discussion.
Good afternoon. My name is Raymond Lambert. I'm here today. I represent United Communities Against Poverty, which is a community action agency here in the county for the last 50 years. The agency has a myriad number of services that function towards getting individuals back into the mainstream, keeping them employed, giving them the services that they need in education, shelter, education, first-time home buyers programs, and the whole merit there, along with the neighborhood stabilization. I think in listening to what we've been hearing already, we all share those very same concerns. So I'll say, in addition to that, what we've already heard, I think that there is a big concern out there still about affordability. When we talk and speak with our clients that are out there, for the county that we're in, the affordability is so great that the job market doesn't allow their income to even come close enough for a home. So we look for, at least with UCAP and the other agencies here, alternative measures. Besides that, we partner very closely with federal, state, and county agencies. And what I would like to see is more collaboration between the other agencies that are the service providers, both the financial service providers and the non-financial service providers. Especially in the non-financial service provider arena, there's very little legislation one way or another that there's a compliance. If you think about it, the mortgages that are out there today, they're sold on the secondary market. And for you to get a modification, you have to get the investors to agree. And we all know investments are a risk. They go up and they go down, but for some reason in this arena in housing, no one wants to go down. And for our homeowners, and I see it even on another side of what I do day to day, face of poverty is changing. It's no longer what we saw years ago. It is now looking like people just in this room. You know, something can happen overnight and you no longer have your home. For those subprime notes, prime and A loans that are about to reset, it's not about the interest rate. It's the term. The term is a part of that calculation that gets you. And when those reset, because then they reset to a 20-year, not a 30, we're going to have another flood of those. And then how do we work with our providers?
You know, that's the biggest key that's out there. We have so many partnerships around the table. We're going to continue to work with the programs that are out here. But the other concern is the flood of the other side, and we're seeing more of that through UCAP, through our foreclosure prevention programs, and partnering with other agencies. We're getting a lot of the other side of the coin as well, not just low to moderate income, but moderate and upper income individuals who are looking at that same scenario.
Mr. County Executive, if we could just put on the list, I know, about bankers, because I would like to do that as well.
Kelly, it's Vaughn, sorry. Here so often we get your staff too, and you did a terrific job.
Thank you. Kelly Vaughn, Director of Community Outreach for Maryland's Department of Housing and Community Development, even though it says I work for you, Eric, in the county exec, but I swear.
Well, you know.
Maryland's Department of Housing and Community Development, I want to thank Senator Cardin and Secretary Castro and county exec, and my boss, although he graciously said colleague, Secretary Snubs, for this invitation and being here. I will say that for me, as the Director of Community Outreach for the state of Maryland, what's really important to me is grassroots, on-the-ground effort, touching and feeling the community. I know marketing communications is important, but when you think of community outreach, it's on the ground, in the community, almost like a political campaign where you're door knocking, touching and feeling homeowners. We have a foreclosure event that Secretary Snubs mentioned going on this Saturday, the last one of the year. We've done these, DHCD's Office of Communications and Marketing has partnered with us to get the word out. The community outreach team has been doing these around the state since 2008. The crisis hit, partnering with a lot of my family, I call them here, DLLR, HUD, Prince George's Department of Housing, our housing counselors, pro bono attorneys, and we've reached over 500,000 homeowners through these efforts as well as mailings. And so it's at Sports and Learning Complex this Saturday, 9 to 3, where we will be bringing in our loan servicers, housing counselors, pro bono attorneys, as well as our nonprofit from the federal, state, and local level to meet one-on-one with our homeowners to provide them with the roadmap resources under mortgage late, don't wait. We don't want you to wait. There's always hope, and we want to give people an option to come out and be educated on all the resources. And so I would say we need more on the ground grassroots outreach efforts.
Right, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity of being at the table. My name is Henry Seawright. I'm pastor of Union Bethel AME Church in Brandywine, as well as another location in Tucker Hills. I'm also representing two organizations. I'm representing the Collective Empowerment Group, and I'm representing Unity Economic Development Corporation, which is a branch of our church. We have one of our workers here, one of our dedicated workers, Ms. Pauline Hilliard, would you stand? As a pastor and as a part of economic development of Prince George's County through our Unity Economic Development Corporation, I just want to provide a few highlights. For the fiscal year, October 1st through 2013 through September the 30th, 2014, we provided services to 719 clients. 334 represents new foreclosure intakes. Each new client is provided ongoing and continuing counseling services until resolution is reached by the bank or client withdraws from counseling. Client resolution with bank may take up to 3 years. UDC recorded 110 successful outcomes in 2014 mortgage modifications. UDC receives a one-time payment of $450 for working with clients and mortgage companies regardless of months and numbers of contracts. We have received funds from the state and other local entities, but we are basically operating by overworked volunteers. We have to also spend the funds before we can get reimbursed. So we have many people, 719 people, who are coming to us on a daily basis. Now this is just for foreclosure prevention.
And we also provide home buyers education. We do the financial literacy, that we offer those programs at least, I think, monthly. And so we are trying to do everything, but we need more funds. We need more help. We have some legal, free legal help by some lawyers who have provided the services. We are working with the banks and of course with the collective banking empowerment group. We are working with them, but it's getting worse. And I can't even begin to speak for what we're doing through Bethel House, our nonprofit outreach, where we did receive a $10,000 grant to open a food pantry. Just to give you an example of what's happening in the county. We opened that food pantry 1 month ago and intended to operate it for Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday for a few hours. Well, we found that people heard about it and it's being used daily. We had to close it down to restock it after 2 weeks. So that's just some of the problems that we're facing, not only as a pastor, but as a community. Thank you.
I'm going to give a delegate green voice so we can go to Mr. Herbert and hopefully get to the discussion. Please.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm Peyton Herbert. I'm with Home Free USA. We're a 501c3 not-for-profit approved counseling agency located here principally in Prince George's County, more recently here on Baltimore, 6200 Baltimore Avenue. And I want to say to Senator Cardin and to Secretary Castro and certainly to the county executive and the other delegates and council members here, I thank you for the opportunity to at least share my thoughts on behalf of Home Free USA. Our president and founder, Marcia Griffin, would have been in attendance. She sends her apology. She's at a leadership conference in Miami, Florida. And that is because we're a HUD intermediary as well, and we support other not-for-profits, approximately 62 other not-for-profits that are geographically dispersed in about 23 other states around the country. So we certainly are involved, but both here locally and on a national basis as well. Two things I would want to bring to the fore in terms of where I think our interests go, and as an organization, we certainly are on the pre-purchase side, as has been shared with my colleagues here on the counseling side, certainly both pre-purchase and post-purchase counseling. I think affordable, sustainable home ownership is a key piece, and I say that to the extent that there is a very sensitive issue in neighborhoods of color in particular. And I say that to the extent that restoration of wealth in many of these neighborhoods and many of these families, and I look around this room and I see these faces, that home represented generational wealth. And to have lost that opportunity to pass that generational wealth on to our heirs in neighborhoods of color is a travesty. And I think that it's important for us to look at the whole affordable housing component, particularly with FHFA and Fannie Freddie, if you will, certainly with the assistance of HUD and other regulatory agencies in creating affordable housing, but sustainable housing. And it's not enough to just get a modification and believe you're okay. Because the real work begins after you've achieved a modification and creating the foundational anchors to financial stability. And if we're going to come up with a workable housing model in this country that does not address restoration of wealth, which I call a path to respectability, folks that have feeling disenfranchised, and I say that passionately, disenfranchised, because they invested in the American dream and it failed them. We're going to have a major crisis on our hands overcoming the apathy and the concerns with future homeowners that look at this process, particularly in neighborhoods of color, and ask, why me? Why should I invest? When in fact, it failed you. So I want to share that with this group. in this audience, and to thank you for the opportunity to bring that message to you today.
Thank you. Let's go to delegate meeting.
I'm Lisa McDougall, the Executive Director of Zoning Department of Economic Development, also known as SEED. I'm also the co-chair with Donna of the Coalition for Homeownership Preservation in Prince George's County. And thank you and welcome to Prince George's County. And I have to say, we're a HUD-approved housing council agency, of course, and we've been in existence for the last 10 years. And that 10 years has been a roller coaster ride. Sometimes a good one and sometimes a bad one. And it's always good to know, and I have to always thank you, of course, Senator Cardin, and for our state and local, and Mr. Brown has become all of our friends and just really helping us and being that ear that we complain to all the time. So we have to say in front of everyone how much we appreciate the work that's being done here at the county level, and we wouldn't be where we are without the state level, of course. You know, we can talk about what the need is, but without having the funds that we've needed to have our back to go out there, we wouldn't be able to move in the way that we have been. And I think I just kind of want to summarize what everyone has said, because there are huge issues that hit us all across the board. And when we start looking at, SEED provides not just first-time home buyer and foreclosure counseling, we also are an emergency food counselor. In addition to that, we provide emergency food, clothes, we operate a charter school. So we really do look at the entire needs of the family, and everything that we've seen from every client that has come in with some issue related to their house, there is also a need for the type of wraparound services. We are always making sure that our counselors ask, how are you doing with food? If you're not able to pay your mortgage, then you're not able to provide food for your family. We're seeing a decrease in grade point averages in students and grades going down because back in my Freddie Mac days, we were really touting that homeownership is tied to higher grades. Okay, nobody's addressing the fact that families that are being displaced, that has a huge impact on the economic stature of the student. And so just like what Mary Ann said, when we start looking at workforce, people are coming to us and they're putting their hands on the table and they're pretty much saying, I'm 3 months behind in my mortgage and I don't have a job and I don't know how I'm going to get a job. And even if I take a job at less than what I'm making, I'm still going to be, I might be able to get out now, but I'm going to still be in trouble. So we start looking at the financial impact on the families that Mr. Herbert talked about, and the fact that legacy wealth was taken away. Okay, well, we know that some of that was superficial legacy wealth in the first place. It was never even really what we would consider to be wealth, but because there is a deep-rooted education that was missing. We do financial literacy training for the students in our charter school and after-schools program and throughout the community, but there's a basic need for a child as young as 8 or 9 year olds to know what a mortgage is. And what that means. You know, you can start with a checking account and a savings account, but if you really want to teach them to be able to become productive members in a technology-driven economic society, then you really have to focus on financial literacy training. And so the passing of the mortgage forgiveness tax credit, if that doesn't continue past December 31st, then the impact is going to be humongous for the families who were crawling out that are going to see themselves just really smack back in. When we start looking at what Mr. Harrington said around workforce training, again, it's going to be imperative that people are able to make a good living wage so that they're able to afford not just that mortgage, the mortgage that they may have had. And not everyone should be homeowners or be able to stay in the level of debt that they were in, and we recognize that as well. And so all of that really kind of gets us to the larger picture that we don't want HUD to forget. As things start to look better and the economy starts to move in the direction towards some good sustainable recovery, we don't want to forget that these are still very real issues that are happening at the local level, which is why outreach is so important. And I have to say that it's on the mind of most of the coalition members. We did launch a campaign that was funded through the state and the county called Housing Counseling Works, that HUD announced the campaign Housing Counseling Works. And so we're glad. So if we're kind of riding on your coattails, we're a little bit out there first, but we'll continue to ride on that to really say that people need to understand that there is help for them, that there's recovery, but we're going to need help at the federal and continued at the state and even the local level to make sure that that recovery impacts and reaches everyone. And we'll take guidance, help us to figure out how we can take what we're doing to the next level. So while we're listening here, we're really going to be looking to how we can turn that into practical application to take what we're doing further, because we're happy to be doing what we're doing as nonprofit operators in this with the the buddies that we have on the ground, from Danielle, newly elected Danielle, that has been with us from the very beginning and trying to help us figure out how that's going to work. These nonprofits are really going to need your help and your guidance to continue to sustain.
Foreclosures in Prince George's County. The greatest impact is, in fact, inside the Beltway. And so I'm here to listen, to see what needs to be done, and to do whatever I possibly can to ensure that the people continue to have some hope. And you're absolutely right. We have a number of people, as a matter of fact, I'm running late today because I was dealing with a foreclosure issue. And I'm going to be talking to people about it. It really is very heart-wrenching for me to sit with these people who just have lost hope in the system. And so I'm here just to listen to see what I possibly can do, or how you all can help, how you, Mr. Secretary, can help Prince George's County, because we truly need. I don't want us to keep talking about what needs to be done, but we need to come up with a plan to deal with this problem. And I must tell you that our banks and our loan institutions are some of the biggest stumbling blocks for these dear souls. It really is a problem. And thank goodness I'm sitting on the Finance Committee, and they will be coming before me. And I'm going to be talking to them about this critical matter.
Thank you. Yeah, Eric, I'm going to turn it back over to you so we can get to the discussion.
I think we're going to try to take the last 15 minutes and try to get back to some of the more substantive issues that you raised during the go around. But I did want to recognize there's a representative from Congresswoman Edwards' office. I think she wanted to make a brief comment. There's a matter from Mr. Hoyer's office.
Terrence.
Okay, we just recognize that. Did I miss anybody? Senator McCuskey's. Michelle. I know. Michelle, how did I miss you? I'm sorry.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Secretary Castro, Senator Cardin for convening, and always County Executive, and always our good partner here with Mr. Brown, and of course Mr. Turner. Congresswoman Evans sincerely regrets that she could not be here today, but she really wanted me to come by and share some of the things that we're seeing in our office. This year, we have had over 400 calls in terms of assistance for help with foreclosures. One of the biggest things that we're finding in our problems is not being able to even help, and Senator Benson just mentioned it, and also David Harrington mentioned it, and that is the banks. We have a critical issue with the banks in terms of the loan modification. It is taking much too long. There has to be a requirement put on them. She would like to see a requirement put on the banks that they have to respond within anywhere from 90 to 120 days. Because there is, and when you see that happening, there is hope, and then all of a sudden the bottom falls out, because it takes anywhere from we have seen, and we track all of this, anywhere from 400, almost 400 days to in instance, and sometimes 3 years or more, that we have people on our rolls, on our foreclosure list, that we're still trying to help. And it all comes down, when you look at that data, it all comes down to the fact the banks and financial institutions are not responding. All of them doing some wonderful work. All the counselors are doing their part. The county is doing their part. The state is doing their part, bringing programs together. But there comes that roadblock. And that is the critical piece that we're seeing and not being able to help this, and that is the banks. And so something has to be done about that. So I didn't want to leave here today without saying that. And I think everybody knows that, and everybody's talking about it. These are wonderful things. And all the programs and ideas that I'm hearing here today, they will work to a certain extent. But until we get everybody on board with the bank, and especially deal with our banks, this problem is not going to be resolved in Prince George's County. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric, you want to lead us to the last? Because I know the secretary has to leave, so.
Yes, just come back to some of the parking lot issues. One of them was, Mr. Harrington raised had to do with workforce development and linking into foreclosure. So if you want to come back to that and just take a brief minute and talk about that and see if anybody want to chime in.
No, I think that,
Okay.
okay, I think this 30 seconds, I know was the hardest hit program, which we could explore that, which I believe, unfortunately, Maryland wasn't qualified because our unemployment rate wasn't as high as in the other states. But I think we should explore that because maybe perhaps the counties can qualify in a way that could provide some bridge gap, and then the bridge funding, and then we could use the list that we have on workforce development to then have people eligible so they have that time to do that. So that's just very, very, very quickly. I'm probably going to get fired for saying this, but I will. Hold us accountable with the banks. I mean, I think that's the right issue, and I'll commit with the Prince George's Chamber of Commerce. We have Bank of America, PNC, practically every bank in Prince George's County is a member of the Chamber of Commerce. What I would call for is a meeting that begins to then discuss this and what are sort of then the roadblocks that we're experiencing, and then we wouldn't mind taking some leadership in heading that discussion, Senator and others, to bring these banks together to see what partnership we could develop to help them curb this time. So hold us accountable to that, and we'd be glad to sort of help with that.
Thank you. I did want to come back because I know the county executives skipped Delegate Bravor and Delegate Neiman, and just wanted to make sure that we come back and give you all.
Well, we've had a lot of good things. I mean, the state's done a lot. We've totally rewritten our process and procedure. But there's one issue in the interest of time I want to put on that HUD issue, which is for the folks who aren't going to go back into that house, is we have a critical problem of affordable rental housing. And that's, you know, much of this is not within the purview of HUD, right? The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is doing the banks now. They already have done very aggressive stuff. But affordable housing is a HUD issue. Housing vouchers, Prince George's County, which led the state in foreclosures, so we had 25 to 30% of all foreclosures, has among the smallest, for big jurisdictions, the smallest number of housing vouchers. It's like 4,000 or something like that. And that's a tiny, tiny fraction. So that's an area where we really need help and assistance in dealing with rental housing, because like it or not, that's going to be the path for a lot of people for the near future. And the resources really aren't adequate to provide that need.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I've done a lot of work in this area, and not just on the foreclosure prevention side, but I still have clients that call me because guess what? They've been foreclosed upon, not necessarily my clients, but people who have been foreclosed upon. But the title is still in their name. So the bank does not have a required time period to actually take title to the property once they go through the foreclosure period. That is a huge issue, and I tell you why. Because if the bank isn't maintaining the property, which they many times are not, which is part of what's going on inside the Beltway, is that those are not the priority homes for the banks to sell, because they're not going to make top dollar off those homes, and so they're the last ones to sell. A lot of times the banks are not taking title to the property, and so many homeowners are still getting calls or correspondence from their homeowners associations asking for their dues. And they're like, well, I got my home was foreclosed on, but guess what? It's still title in that individual's name, and they're still responsible for it. So not only do they have homeowners things to worry about, but also insurance issues, because if something happens on their property, if someone falls, slips, I mean, they're still they are still responsible as a homeowner. And the banks are picking and choosing where they want to intervene and how quickly they want to intervene. And Bob Strupp, who's on the, I mentioned I was on the board of Baltimore Neighborhood Thing, also mentioned that there's no transparency from the banks in terms of sharing their data on the national settlement and what's happening there. So maybe more transparency, number one, would be really helpful. But in addition to that, we need to have some standards for these banks once they've gone through the process of the foreclosure process, to actually require them to take title within a certain period of time. Otherwise, not only are the homeowners in trouble, the neighborhood's in trouble, because these are the homes that are becoming what's called distressed homes. And when you have distressed homes on the MLS system, those homes are targeted by investors. They're bought by investors, and then they're rented to individuals who don't have a connection to the community. So you're really changing the fabric of the community when you have a bunch of investors looking at purchasing properties in some of the neighborhoods. That's definitely not going to stabilize our communities. So I am really happy that the business communities wants to step up on this issue. And I'd be happy to work with you and the bankers, but we have to absolutely hold them accountable.
Thank you, and thank you all. This has been, I know we could probably stay here another couple of hours and still not get through and to everything. But we do want to be mindful of the time that Senator Cardin and the Secretary had available as well as the county executive. We wanted to know whether or not there was any closing remarks or things that either one of you wanted to say, and just thank everybody.
I'm going to turn it over to the Secretary for concluding remarks, but I think we all got our marching orders, and I think all of us have a lot more work to do. In the Congress, we got to fight for affordable housing policies in this country. We've got to do a better job. We'll have a chance, I hope, on improving the low-income housing tax credit. Certainly trying to make permanent, not just a temporary extension of the loan forgiveness. We are going to work on trying to make that a permanent provision. We have funding levels for HUD and the flexibilities that they need. And what most of you mentioned in the banking issues, we do have a regulatory structure under Dodd-Frank that can be helpful, but we also need to take a look at whether there are some time issues that need to be mentioned. I thought your point about the time is a good area, because it does really destabilize neighborhoods when you have properties that are in limbo. On the issues of that, clearly the counseling works. We know that. We've seen firsthand people whose homes have been saved. We also know that some banks are doing the right thing, and I think we should put a spotlight on that. And one thing is to show how it works. And it's in the bank's interest to work these things out, quite frankly. It's hard to understand why other banks aren't stepping forward. It really is. Sometimes it's just you can't get their attention because it's just not a big deal to them. It's a big deal to us, but not to them. So I think we got to do a better job on the counseling and making it more available. You all indicated financial literacy is critically important. Before a person buys a home, they have to know what they're getting into, and you have to do a better job there. It's no question to me that that's an extremely important point. So I really do think, and no one's mentioned this, but I added that where people have been responsible for predatory practices, we've got to make sure they're held fully accountable. Now, the Attorney General did a great job in the lawsuit. That was very helpful. But we've got to continue to be very vigilant against those who are doing the wrong thing in our community, and we have to do that aggressively. So I think in Prince George's County, I applaud your local leadership. Sherman Baker has done a great job in the work in the county. Governor O'Malley has really taken a step forward on this issue and provided great leadership in our state. And certainly President Obama is a person who fully understands the role the federal government must play here. So we have the right people in place. Obviously, there's going to be some changes at the state level. We have to monitor that closely to make sure that we have the type of help at all levels of government as we move forward.
Thank you again, Senator Cardin, and everyone who's here. It's very informative to hear the different concerns. And also, we'd love to follow up with folks through Marvin and through Jane and make sure that this isn't the end of the conversation, it's just the beginning of one. Just briefly, we call ourselves the Department of Opportunity. And two of the biggest opportunities that we're going to work very hard to provide are for folks to get into a home, to own a home, for folks to stay in a home. And so, whether it's our DAS program and making some improvements to that, fighting for housing counseling dollars. We've mentioned this issue of for what we do with foreclosure prevention and also counseling and linking that to workforce development. One of the things that we're looking at now is the intersection of housing with other opportunities. If you're a working age person, how do you get job training or get access to job opportunities? If you're a young person, how do we make sure that you're getting a good education? So that's very much on the radar screen that we're pushing toward over the next couple of years. The issue was brought up. I think all the feeling here, we see it across the nation that there is an affordable housing rental crisis out there in city after city. And the president has requested in his budget greater funding for housing choice vouchers. Now, as the senator said, that, given the conditions there, I know the senator and others are fighting for that, but we're hopeful that we can increase the housing choice vouchers. Mel Watt, the director of FHFA, has announced that this month in December he's going to make a decision about turning on the spigot for the National Housing Trust Fund, which is modest right now. I believe the amount is about $250 million annually. It would be, if there is at some point some housing finance reform legislation, whatever that looks like, although right now, truthfully, that is up in the air because of the changes in Congress and other issues. There may be a more robust housing trust fund that could create more affordable housing in the nation. That's something that we certainly support. So just know that these issues that you've brought up are very much on our radar screen, and we want to get accomplishments in terms of improvements and filling the gaps that exist. The issue that you brought up with regard to the banks, I think, is a very good one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
You all right?
Here's our